Hello everybody, the next topic is frequency adverbs and expressions. First, we're going to talk about frequency adverbs. These are some words that we use together with the simple present to talk about routines and how often we do things, or with what frequency we do things. At the top, we have always. This is something that we do 100% of the time. In Spanish, this one is siempre. Then we have never here at the bottom. That is something that we do 0% of the time. Something that you do nunca. And they come here in a scale from 100% to 0%. So usually is something you do 90% of the time. For example, I usually read the newspaper on the weekend. Often is something you do 80% of the time, something that you do frequently. For example, I often go for a walk on the weekend. Sometimes is something that you do 50% of the time. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. For example, I sometimes study English on the weekend. And hardly ever is something that you do like 10 or 20% of the time. You don't do that very often. For example, I hardly ever drink coffee. And then we get to never again there at 0%. So that's what they mean. We usually put frequency adverbs before your main verb. For example, here, I always listen to the radio at work. Notice that you start with your subject, then your frequency adverb, and then your verb or your action, which is listen. And you're going to do that all the time except when you have a verb to be. We put them after the verb to be. So look at the next example. It says they are never late to class. We have here the subject, they, are, the verb to be, never, the frequency adverb, and then what you are never, which is late to class. We also use the question, how often, to ask about how frequently actions happen. For example, how often do you go to the park? They're asking the frequency with which you go to the park. And you can use a frequency adverb to answer that question. I always go to the park. I sometimes go to the park. I never go to the park. Right? That's how we would answer those questions. We also have other phrases called frequency expressions. These have the same purpose as frequency adverbs, but we use them a little bit differently. Once again, we use them with the simple present to talk about regular habits and routines. For example, I go to the gym every day. These we usually put at the end of the sentence when we finish. For example, I visit my parents once a week. There my expression is at the end. But if you would like, you can put it at the beginning. Like this example here. Once a week, comma, I visit my parents. Okay, so we put our action and then our frequency expression, or our frequency expression and then our action. However you would like to do it. The frequency expressions look like this. Once means one time, and you can use that with once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year. Twice means 2 times. Again, we can combine that with twice a day, twice a week, twice a month, twice a year. You can say every day. That means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then the next week it repeats. Monday, Tuesday, every single day of your life. Every week, every month, every year. And you can use it with other numbers too. You can say 3 times a day, 3 times a week, 3 months a year. 4 times a day, a week, a month, or a year. 7 times, whichever way is best for you. I want you to try some things in your book. The first exercise is on page 116. I want you to write the sentences again. We have a frequency adverb in parentheses, and all you need to do is put it in the correct place. All right, that's all we're doing. I helped you with the first one. It says my father reads the newspaper, and I have to insert the word always. So my father is a subject, then I put my frequency adverb, and then my verb or the action. So it ends up looking like my father always reads the newspaper. Right? Do the other 5 on your own and then come back to the video. For the next one, this is same page, 116, activity 2. We have to put one word in each sentence, and these are all frequency adverbs. So for example, this one, it says I go to the gym, and you have to select a word to put here. We can put every day, for example. Be careful when they tell you how many times they do things. So do that and come back to the video. For the third activity of the day, we're still on page 116, and we have to correct the sentences. The problem is that the frequency adverb or expression is not in the correct place. For example, here the first one starts with never. It says, never Sam listens to music. But that's not the place we should put never. We have to put it after the subject and before the verb. The answer to that one would be, Sam never listens to music. So fix the rest of them and come back to the video. And your last activity for this portion is in your notebook. I want you to answer all of the questions with a time expression or a frequency adverb. For example, how often do you go to the movies? For that question, I would answer, I go to the movies once a week. That's what we do for numbers 1 to 9. For number 10, I want you to write your own question with how often to ask your classmates. All right, invent your own question. You can use questions 1 to 9 to help you get ideas. You can ask whatever you want. Just make sure it's prudent to ask in class, please. And with that, you finish with this topic.